It's easy to get overwhelmed with all the ways that AI is going to and has been disrupting our world. And we wanted
Yeah.
to focus on AI can actually bring us together in community and help with communication and not make us feel more isolated and alone. I also want AI to help change the way that we're using social media to
Yeah.
solve this problem that we have in a world where people are consuming content and feeling lonely, and
Yeah.
help us enter into more conversations that matter.
Welcome back to AudioLife, the podcast where we tell your story in your voice. I'm your host today, Carrie Purcell, and today I'm joined by Peggy O'Flaherty, CEO of Vinley, serial entrepreneur, international #1 best-selling author, and mother to 5. Peggy, I'm really excited about our conversation today. Thank you for joining me and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Carrie. It's lovely to be here with you today.
Good. So I want to hear all about your journey. I want to hear about your work today. I want to dig into the book. But at AudioLife, we often get the chance to speak to CEOs and authors, and we like to learn a little bit about the person behind the success story. So, what helped to form and inform who you are today, your mission today, the work that you do. So, before we get into your career, your company, the book, I want to talk about the Peggy before 5 startups, before 5 kids, before multiple company sales and acquisitions. So if you'll indulge me, let's go back a little bit. I sometimes ask this question, and again, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to ask you, where were you born, and is there a story behind your name?
Thank you. I am born in the Midwest, just outside of Chicago. I am the youngest of 10 siblings, obviously a big family. My mother was from Canada, and, I was kind of one of those girls, just grew up with my shoes off, running around the backyard, always in the grass, climbing trees, and named after one of my father's aunts. Name was Margaret, but they named me Peggy.
Okay. I love that.
They called me Peggy.
They call you Peggy, yeah. So did they call her Peggy as well?
Yes.
That was a short name or a nickname for her. Good. So youngest of 10, tell us a little bit about what that was like.
My father was a blue-collar worker, and my mother was a cook in a kitchen. So I was blessed, and my grandmother was too. So I was blessed to learn from a lot of wonderful cooks. But my father and his brothers grew up building all of our homes for all of our uncles. So, there was always a combination of helping out, building things for the church, building things for people in our community. And then the aunts and the grandmas were always cooking for everybody in the community. So it was a wonderful little town that I grew up in that was surrounded by not only neighbors and relatives, but a community of people that were always serving together, cooking together, working together. And that's all I ever knew. And I think I'm not only fairly handy, but I also feel like I can work my way around the kitchen.
Amazing. And that really, really strong sense of community, right? Serving within the family, but within the community. Really, really practical, strong skill set with the building and the cooking. And I think as we talk further, we're going to learn that you've done a lot of building yourself in terms of building businesses and building your career. So you've maybe taken that, those roots in another direction. Before we jump there, tell us a little bit about kind of school and leading into maybe some of your first jobs.
Yeah, I don't know. I think one thing that happens, maybe some of your listeners can relate to this, is sometimes when you're in a big family, there's sometimes a little bit of chaos with that. And I don't think that academics was necessarily the biggest value within my family. I think there was a lot of other distractions, especially in the 70s with a lot of my brothers and sisters. And I was often left to kind of fend for myself, and I became an entrepreneur at a very young age. And my parents would often challenge me to find ways to entertain myself. And so at one point, I remember asking my mom, I wanted to go buy something up at the local dime shop. And, she said, well, you're going to have to figure out ways to do that. And so I went around the house and I asked all my siblings if I could take any of the little knickknacks from their bedrooms that they didn't want. And I filled up my wagon and I went up and down the street and I sold things from my wagon. I was maybe in first grade. And I ended up probably, I think it was like $7 I got from the neighborhood. Came back and I told my mom, I said, well, I'm going to the store. I can buy some things. And she said, how much money did you make? I said, $7. And she said, how did you make $7? I said, well, I sold everything in the wagon. And she probably was shocked by what I sold. But I was so excited. And so I ended up doing all kinds of little entrepreneurial things with kids in the neighborhood. And I just never was very focused on my academics, but I was very focused on organizing things within the community and within my neighborhood, and all kinds of little carnivals and different dance shows and organizing different groups within, athletic programs within the school. And I was never very motivated by excelling academically, but I was very motivated by organizing things within the community, within the school, within the church. And that's where I was really thriving. And that's kind of been my theme throughout my life. And so even when I was a young mom, I was very involved in helping other moms within the school and within the neighborhood create little micro entrepreneur opportunities or little side gigs so that they could do more than just so they could be present for their children, but help offset the expense of raising children. It's very expensive to raise families. So I wanted to always help those moms, create little opportunities to help their family with micro incomes. And so that's always been a passion of mine. And academically, I obviously went to university and I got a degree and had a wonderful career and did all of those things. But I got very excited to pursue my entrepreneurial spirit.
That's a wonderful. I love hearing about entrepreneurs as children. There's usually always at least one, if not a whole series of these entrepreneurial ventures that you've started, showing your creativity, probably showing your grit, showing that kind of motivation, right? And for many of us, it's, at that age, I want this thing. How do I get it? My parents aren't going to give it to me. They're not going to give me the money to do it. How do I do it, right? And then maybe getting hooked on that. I can do that myself and continue to do it. So there's often these really cool, underlying stories that show us what motivated you as a young person and how you continue to take that forward. And it sounds like that's always been a theme. I know we'll talk about some significant businesses that you've built, but I like bringing that into motherhood, right? And helping not just on the community side, but maybe helping to solve just everyday problems that people are facing. So tell us a little bit about your motherhood journey. Maybe, so you have 5 kids. I don't know, how old you were when you had kids, how old your kids are now, what that transition in life felt like. You obviously wanted to go and support other mothers around you. So probably things that you were feeling or had faced or had maybe solved. So I just threw a lot at you. Tell us a little bit about motherhood.
I was blessed with a really wonderful mother and 8 sisters. And I felt definitely that I wanted to be a mother. I had a little bit of trouble getting pregnant originally. And so I had to have a lot of help with doctors. And then all of a sudden I had 5 children within about 6 years. So I ended all of a sudden was like, wow, how do I raise all these children? And, through community, right? It came right back to that. I realized at the age of, 38, I thought I didn't know that I needed the other women in my network as much as I did. I was lucky enough to be able to stay home for a period of years, and those women became my network. Getting up in the morning and finding that heading to the park or heading to the library or raising children together through the grade school, through high school, those years of the fellowship, locking arms with those other mothers to share values with our children was really quite critical to me, because I realized I couldn't do it alone. Of course, it was wonderful to have a support network with my husband and then our immediate family, but it was the network of other mothers and school teachers that helped me, I think, raise a foundation of 5 wonderful children, 2 that are out of college, 2 that are in college, and I have 1 still in high school. So what I love about that is that all 5 of my children have actually helped participate in building my 5 companies. And so I've tried to pass along. I think they sometimes like the fact that I'm an entrepreneur, and sometimes I think they don't. They've seen the scars and the beauty of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, you talk a little bit in your chapter in the new book, which we'll get into, about your children and about them helping at integral points in building some of your past companies. So we will dig into that more. Before we get there, I want to ask you. So you said it was difficult to get pregnant. Is that something that you want to share as part of your story?
Sure. It was interesting. I just recently got back from a trip I try to take one-on-one trips with my children because being an entrepreneur, I sometimes work very long days. And so what I tried to do is get quality time. So I took my second daughter to Montana the last 5 days, and we just spent time hiking together, and we went ranching, and we went to Yellowstone, and she was asking about the fact that I had trouble initially getting pregnant, and I did in vitro. And then after that, I, was able to get pregnant on my own. And she was just, asking about that experience for me. And it was fun to now share that with the 24-year-old woman that she is. So yes, obviously that is a very hard thing for any young woman to go through. And it was for myself. I also lost a child, and that is also very hard and very sad. I feel for anyone that has to go through that kind of a loss. But I'm really interested and so I think the young women nowadays are so in touch with their own health. And I think when I look at the 20-year-old women today, they're so much more responsible for their own personal health and the way that they advocate for themselves. So my daughter and her girlfriend actually did this trip. So it was myself and 2 20-year-old girls. And I love the way that they own and they advocate for themselves, and they're responsible for their own personal health. And in a way that I don't know that I was at 19 or 20 years old. And so the way that they talk about the way that the choices that they make for their own health and wellness, they're far more educated than I think I was at that time. And the way that the choices that they make and the way that they talk about their own health and the decisions that they make for vitamins that they're taking and the choices that they're making. I'm very impressed with this younger generation. And so, and just how everything from their sleep to their vitamins that they're taking to their how alcohol plays into their health and wellness, how meditation plays into it, how stress plays into it. So I'm very, very impressed with the younger generation of women that are rising up and how intelligent they are. So even though I had my own set of challenges with getting pregnant, I don't know that I was nearly as educated as I see these younger women are.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, and it is something about this generation. I don't have children. I don't have children of your age, but I teach children, 3rd and 4th year college students who would be, in that age range. And there's a lot of discussion and focus on healthy habits, on sleep habits, on eating, on meditation, on managing stress, right? Things that are very healthy that, I didn't grow up with that level of focus. And I wonder, you probably have better insight into where that shift happened, but I wonder how much technology played a role in that. And certainly education, open education being available. What are your thoughts on that?
For sure. I mean, obviously the technology has played a pivotal role, right? And in what they're exposed to. And I obviously, with technology, been a part of all the different companies that I've built. I'm a big supporter of the way that technology can be used for a greater good. So I would say in this regards, I think it's positively impacted the future
Yeah.
generations.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, let's shift a little bit back into work. We can, as you mentioned, your kids have been involved in it, so we can bring them back in. But you are a serial entrepreneur. You've had multiple successful ventures. You mentioned in the book, which we'll talk about more, that you are focused on networks rooted in purpose. And recently in the book, you say you were on a quest to build again. Tell us about the journey. If you want to start at, one of your first startups, tell us about that. We will get to Vinley, but tell us a little bit about this journey.
Thank you. Again, I've been an entrepreneur, I believe, my whole life. I had the pleasure of starting my first company formally when I was about 43. I went back and I got certified in a coaching business to help women with starting small businesses. And I wanted to just help women take their idea and turn it into a business. So it was anything from starting a cupcake shop to an interior design to a speaking business to writing their first book. And so it was really just taking the idea into execution and then realizing that if it included fundraising to profitability. So that was my first business. And I did that for a couple of years. It was called Creating Space. And it was really, coaching and mentorship. Wrote a book then, as well as some public speaking. And then I did a women's skincare business where I grew to about 100 women in 3 different countries. And what was good about that was that one was a part of a multi-level marketing company. There were some pluses and minuses there, but it really propelled me into the next company where I created an app for churches. And I used a lot of the modeling from the multi-level marketing company on how to educate people all around the country to sell this app for the church, for greater reach, communication, a donation tool, but ultimately for advocating community service, giving back to their community for things like helping with a food pantry, donating clothing to a charity drive, helping with community activation. And so I was using the plus aspects of a multi-level marketing where they use word of mouth marketing to support a local community. And so I was kind of cross collaborating 2 different types of business models into one. And then ultimately that led to my 4th company, which was Mavely, which was a micro influencer platform to help everyday women with sharing their favorite brands and leveraging social media. And that grew to a very, very successful company and actually sold in 2021. And then I stayed there for an earnout period. We grew to, several thousand women and the major brands in the world, from Walmart to every major brand, Universal Studios to Chewy, to every major brand was on that platform as well, and sold that company. And then I moved on to create Vinley, which is a Vine connecting people as a communication platform using AI.
Very cool. Thank you for that background. So that brings us up to, I want to briefly talk about what brought us together today. So you are one of the co-authors of The AI Revolution, Thriving Within Civilization's Next Big Disruption. So a lot of us who have a technology background, if we weren't using and knowledgeable about AI in the past, we certainly are today. And, this book shares a lot of perspectives, examples, journeys about people's expertise with AI. You wrote chapter 21. It's entitled A Journey Building Authentic Communities with Innovation. And if I haven't already said it on the podcast, I think I have, but if I haven't already, I just want to note that the book launched only a few weeks ago. and is an international bestseller. So we are talking to an international #1 bestselling author, bestseller across Canada, the US, Germany. I think it's hit Australia as well. I'll have to check the most recent reports. So can you tell us about your chapter in 60 seconds? I won't time you, but just that, just that snapshot.
It's easy to get overwhelmed with all the ways that AI is going to and has been disrupting our world. And we wanted to focus on AI can actually bring us together in community and help with communication and not make us feel more isolated and alone. I also want AI to help change the way that we're using social media to solve this problem that we have in a world where people are consuming content and feeling lonely, and help us enter into more conversations that matter.
Excellent. Thank you. So you touch on this in your book that, you touch on Vinley, you touch on the idea that you saw problems with social media that you were solving, that you did user research and validated those problems. Help us understand. So I will admit both to you, Peggy, and to our listeners that you have invited me to the platform. I have not yet joined, so I know, and that's a different conversation. But consider me a newcomer, potentially like our listeners who's interested. So what problems, you touched on a few just now, I know, but tell us what problems you saw and that you validated that Vinley fixes, and then tell me how it works.
Yes. Well, right now, Vinley is primarily focused on closed, trusted networks. So every network or every community that we have within Vinley is a private, closed, trusted network. So if you have a community like previously a Facebook group or a Slack group, you could have a group within Vinley where it's private, closed, and trusted. So the only people within the group are people that you invite into the group. What we're doing is we're reducing all the noise and the clutter. So basically there's no ads, and there's no algorithms, so that the people you invite in, you can discover and have conversations faster, and the AI can help you with the heavy lifting. So there's benefits to the users, and there's benefits to the person that's the community organizers. So there is a networking component to it, but there's also an element of a communication platform.
Okay. I love that. I love the private, closed, and trusted. I can see a lot of benefit there. Of course, I like the idea that there's no ads.
And now for a word from our sponsors. Ready to share your stories and life philosophy? Or capture those of a parent or grandparent? Or maybe a corporate package is right for you to build connection across your workforce and add value to your clients. Visit audiolife.io today to learn more. Our listeners will get 10% off using discount code GIFT10 and order number AudioLife Podcast. AudioLife, where memories find their voice.
I'm curious about the AI piece. So you're saying it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for me. You don't have to go into all of the technical aspects, but tell me as a user, how am I seeing or experiencing the AI piece? And from your perspective, how did it make the project easier, better, more successful?
So if you look at, for example, my chapter in the book, I was able to upload my chapter of the book into Vinley and create an AI agent for myself. And then I can share my QR code or my link on any of my social platforms, on my signature line, on my link in my bio. I can share that across any of my platforms. And instead of reading the entire chapter, you can chat with my AI agent, which is better than a bot, and you can interact with me in an experience about the book versus reading the entire chapter. What that also does is, as you're chatting with me, it's building community around the book, the reader, and myself. So in addition to chatting with myself, you could be chatting with everyone else that also read the chapter in the book. So to make a parallel to that, if you go to a concert and you have an amazing experience with the musician or the performer, right? And if Carrie, if you hear a musician and you're really touched by a song, and I hear a musician and I'm really touched by the song, but there's 2,000 people there and you and I don't know each other, we can both leave that concert and start chatting with Vinley. And then you and I could be chatting and discover each other. Maybe we would have never met, and we could share an experience about one lyric or one part of the song that we were both touched by in a way that we wouldn't by just seeing something on Instagram or TikTok and making a comment, right? Because if you see something on social and you comment, we're both statically commenting on an image or a video. That's not really community. What Vinley is doing is actually building community around the content so we can have conversation in a very dynamic and holistic way. So we're building community around the brand or around the author or around the musician or around the amount of users that we have is endless right now. The amount of examples, the amount of people that are coming on building spaces within Vinley. But what we're doing is, instead of just sharing content, we're sharing an experience where people are chatting one-on-one, but then they're chatting in a community.
Very, very interesting. I can hear and start to envision a lot of those use cases. So a few of the kind of practicalities. So am I chatting? Am I text chatting? Am I voice chatting? How am I interacting?
Great question. So you are actually, it's all right now, it's all via text chatting. And then, so it's all through text. Yeah.
Okay. And do I have a synchronous component? It sounds like the AI I can have a synchronous conversation with, but some of the other people, is there an asynchronous component as well?
Yes. Yeah. So that's a great question. So with this example of my chapter in my book, right?
Yeah.
So I can have people chatting with my AI assistant, and then I can step in and engage and add more context. So the person someone can actually be chatting with my AI assistant. I can jump in and add more clarity. And then if I'm on vacation for 2 weeks, you can continue to chat with my AI assistant. But then inside the platform, the individual who's chatting with my AI assistant can get 10 other recommendations as to other people, or 100 other recommendations as to other people who are also chatting about my exact same book that they may want to meet and have dialogue with as well. So there's this opportunity to create and build communities around all of these other, brands, authors, influencers, in a way that we weren't doing before.
Yeah.
I think it's really like a second or the next revolution of where we're going to go with social media.
Yeah, I love the vision. I will try it out, but first I'll ask you a few more questions. So the AI assistant, the AI agent, do I as a user know that it's your AI agent, and do I know when it switches to you? That part's sort of clear and transparent. Okay.
It's very transparent. Yep.
And then when the system gives me some recommendations for other people that are maybe having a conversation or so on, is that person who's recommended, do they sort of get an opt-in or opt-out, right? Do I get to say, sure, I'll talk to Peggy, or no?
Yes.
Not interested. Okay.
Absolutely. Because again, it's a closed and trusted network, right? So people can choose to either, all of the networks are either closed or open. The organizer, like the author or the musician or the brand or the nonprofit, will choose to have their group or their space open or closed. And then people can choose. Every conversation is obviously private, closed, as if it was on WhatsApp. Again, this is like a third generation of whatever WhatsApp would ever do. I also think it's a far better version of what LinkedIn can do today. Because on LinkedIn, it was a legacy system. Their social graphing, the way that you would discover someone, it's not nearly as advanced as the way we built Vinley with the AI that we've used to use social graphing to pair and introduce people to someone that they maybe would have never met. With a shared like an affinity of a book or a musician or a topic of, religion or faith, or across an organization, or like the book that we just read or authored.
So very cool. I don't know about others. I'm sure like me, our minds are going into a whole bunch of use cases that are specific to us. And it's like, oh, so could it be used for this? Or it probably could be used for this, and so on. You've given us some use cases already. Can I ask you about current users? I mean, again, you've given us some current users and use cases that could help us just imagine why we might want to dig in and how I would be invited, right? How can I join?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things, think about when you go to a conference or an event, and they always have an event or a conference app. So if there's 1,000 people at a conference, you always go to the event app, and there's probably, 10 or 15 people that you meet at the conference of 1,000 that you're like, those were great introductions. Then you get back on the airplane and you're like, okay, well, there was still 950 people that I didn't get to meet, right?
Yep.
We need to continue the conversation after the event. And it's virtually impossible for the conference apps to do the kind of pairing of the people we really need to meet, right? It's not as easy to say, you're a distributor, you're a buyer, you're a seller, you're a vendor, right? We're far more complicated individuals than that. That's where AI can help us. So I'm right now reaching out to all the major conference apps to say, we can be an add-on. Yeah. We don't want to be a conference app. We can be an add-on to say, for the 51 other weeks out of the year, we can help with the ongoing conversation. So that's one really good use case. Another great use case is like alumni groups. So there's products like HiveBright, Mighty Networks, and Circle. Those are great for the community building when it comes to a lot of content sharing. I think we're a next generation of, go to your community group for all the content. And then when they want to continue conversation with pairing. So if you're in a network group of 800 people and it's worldwide and they maybe have a CRM, you shouldn't have to go in and search the CRM for the person that you want to meet that does whatever your shared interest is. It should be automatically happening with a really robust AI tool. That's really what we're doing. We're pairing with the right people, starting the conversation and making those introductions, and basically getting us into conversation faster. So alumni groups, think about every time you do a Zoom call or like right before a Zoom call, there's always follow-up, and we're all getting like the notes after a call, but that is usually several other conversations that need to happen after that. Or even something like this, Carrie, somebody could listen to this. Well, this should fall right into community. Like, I want to continue this. Anybody listening to this should fall into a community of people that want to continue the conversation. And then even a brand, like if you have a brand that you have a huge affinity towards and you're like a VIP customer, a very loyal customer, there could be a subgroup within Vinly that is the brand and their VIP customers that they have just kind of like maybe something that you would have used Slack for in the past, but it's a conversation around the brand in a very closed affinity group. Something that you wouldn't maybe put on a LinkedIn group or something that you would never maybe use a Facebook group for, but somewhere where you want to have more community conversation. This is where Vinly plays. Okay.
So that practical piece about how do I join or get invited. So take me through you started with the post-conference, which I completely resonates with me, right? You've got your however many 950, 9,500 other people that you haven't connected with. Your access to that app is going to expire. If it doesn't, nobody's on that app anymore. Messaging doesn't work in that app, right? So then I'm trying to filter through for the people I want connection with. Then I have to pick how am I going to connect with them because it can't be in that app. So I'm probably trying to find them on LinkedIn or wherever else I can get them to respond. But the hype of the conference has kind of ended and maybe they're not paying attention. So as Vinly, are you going to the conference? So you're looking at the conference organizers, the app providers, and saying, this will be the follow-up. Those, as you said, the other 51 weeks of the year, this is how people can stay connected to your content, to your brand, to the conversations that they started. Now, I'm an attendee at the conference. How am I learning about Vinly? How do I get on? What happens there? And if you don't talk about it, you mentioned it was not ad supported. So is there a cost and who gets that cost?
Yeah, great question. So anybody can go to Vinly, vinly.co right now, and you can join as a user or you can join and build your own space. We're also from an enterprise sale going directly to the major conference groups and conference apps that are today doing integration. So we'd love to see, and we've already seen it at a couple right now, that at the very end of the conference, on the apps themselves, that there's just a QR code to say, hey, if you want to stay connected after the app, just scan the QR code. Everybody from the conference can start to connect. And then the AI is just organically connecting everyone based on their profiles. So it's beautiful. Again, if you're an author, that's another great example. I mean, they can come in, they can build their upload their book, and then they can have a QR code at the end of their book and then start onboarding their own readers. So those are examples. So basically anybody can sign up for Vinly directly from the website. And then we have an enterprise solution where we're looking at more high level, bringing on brands, bringing on conferences, bringing on larger alumni groups. We've brought on some universities that are doing the pairing between students and alumni, so that we can help the relationship between student and alumni. Those are another example. So any of those types of examples where you're trying to pair different people to come together to have conversations, we're primarily a conversation platform. So it's like, who do you want to have conversations with in that closed network? Yeah. So how do we network in a healthier way?
Thank you. So I started by asking you about your chapter. You talk about this in your chapter, but we've gone into far more depth in terms of what you can do, what the use cases are, how I can get involved. So thank you for that. You know, we like to leave a little bit of what you've written a mystery, so that if readers haven't read it yet, they're encouraged to go back and do it. But we still want them to get a little bit more than they're going to get from what they read. So I think we've successfully done that. What is a main insight or takeaway that you hope readers will get from reading your chapter?
That AI is actually going to help us. I really believe it's going to bring us closer together. And for those small businesses that are out there around the world, adopting technology into our everyday life, into our everyday small businesses in small ways and large ways needs to happen today. On our websites, on our signature lines, on our customer interfaces. This is something that we can start to do right away, and it will streamline our operations. It will help us scale. It's nothing to be afraid of, and it's easier said than done. It doesn't have to be expensive. So we're here to help. There's so many of us that are excited to help other people do this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great message. From a writer, a personal standpoint, was there anything that you wrestled with or debated internally as you wrote your chapter? And maybe it made it in, maybe it didn't.
I'm still kind of wrestling with, doing AI ethically, and I was even worried about writing the book to think it's moving so quickly that I feel like it's going to be outdated by the time we wrote this. And in some regards, there's an awful lot of what's being published and what's practical. And it's, it's still taking time, right? AI assistants, AI bots, agents talking to agents. Some of this is practically happening, and some of it's, still moving a little bit slower, even though it's getting a lot of hype. So as much as I was worried about it, now I'm like, it's okay. I still think things are happening at an enterprise level at the bigger companies much faster than in the day-to-day world. And so I think we're moving along just as it should.
Yeah, really, really well put. It's, as soon as something is put into print, it's dated, they say, and it's hard to know how quickly it's going to date, right? I think that it can't stop us from sharing what we know and are experiencing today. If it becomes a record of more of a historical record sooner than we expect, it still shares a perspective that was true, valid, and existed at that time. But you're right. There's a lot coming that we're still kind of sifting through the hype versus the reality, and you brought up the ethical piece of it, which is something I care a lot about. It's something I research and work on a lot. We're certainly, the pace of innovation and evolution is outpacing regulatory bodies, and it's a problem because we see when something goes wrong. We have to be reactive instead of proactively anticipating everything that's going to go wrong. That's something we could talk about for a long time, and I won't. But one of the things that you said is that you think it's so important for people to bring AI into their everyday life, right? A lot of what we talk about throughout this book is business focused. It's sector specific. It's professional. You talk about a combination of personal, but also how you've brought it into work. I want to ask you about your favorite AI hack just in your personal life.
I try very hard to eat clean.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will often use AI in my grocery shopping list.
Yeah.
And so when I'm trying to either eat high protein or low sugar, and I'll ask, my ChatGPT or whatever to help me create my list for the week. And specifically, Monday through Friday or for the next 7 days, write my grocery list for a meal plan with low sugar, high protein. And literally it'll write the entire grocery list and meals for the week, with certain percentage of protein. And it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very, very simple thing to do. And a lot of people are not doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, great example. And it is incredible. I use it in similar ways. So I'm just so impressed at how it's reducing, time and cost with dietitians and other health providers and cookbooks that do or don't account for specific dietary restrictions I have or others have. And you can just hyper personalize and customize. You can do it week over week. You could take a picture of your fridge and say, here's what I have right now. You can refine. So I love that example. And I agree. Everybody should just be testing this out in their everyday life. It's very, very fun. Okay. One more question around how we're handling AI today. I want to put you through a little bit of a visioning exercise. So if you could send a message to future generations, let's think 1 or 2 generations out, about how we today handled AI, what would it be?
Say that again.
Yeah. So if you could send one message to future generations about how we handled AI today, what would it be?
I should not be afraid to just embrace it, with a sense of curiosity.
I like that.
With a sense of curiosity and a sense of wonder.
Yeah. Wonderful. So, Peggy, great advice. Lots of wonderful stories, background, and tools for us to dig into and try out. Where can people learn more about your work and connect with you? I mean, Vinley has to be in the answer, but you answer.
Well, absolutely. So if anyone that actually joins into Vinley can chat directly with me there. On
cool.
LinkedIn or on Instagram as well. They can get, chat with me there directly, and then, jump into Vinley and join and chat with me. And I would love to show a demo for anyone as well. And they can also obviously chat with my AI agent of the book. And Carrie, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be on this journey with you. I mean, how lucky are we that we've had this worldwide exposure to other leading experts in this space, very in-depth AI technologists to people just in a very practical way. So what a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure. And thank you for summing it up that way. I really do hope that everybody does get a chance to check out the AI Revolution. And as Peggy said, it's a collaboration of 34 authors from across the globe, across domains, everything from people who have just discovered AI in their personal or professional life to people with deep expertise who have been researching and studying with multiple masters and PhDs for decades. So there is something for everybody, and you can go to any degree of depth. I've told one of our other co-authors that every chapter, at least for me, every chapter isn't long enough. I can't believe how much I'm getting out of them and how much more I want from them. So again, these conversations can and will continue, and the expertise is there. Peggy, is there anything else that you wanted to share today that I haven't asked you about?
I think the other thing that I would, just encourage people is to continue to lift people up. I think there's an awful lot of people in our world that are lonely.
Yeah.
And that we need to constantly remember when we get into an elevator, when we are sitting at a restaurant, there's an awful lot of people that are still looking down at their phones because we've gotten into this terrible cycle of letting technology be our best friend instead of the person sitting across from us. And that's why our tagline is conversations that matter, although we're using AI and texting for that as our platform, is because we want to get back to more conversations and less, less into this idea that there's a lot of people out in the world that have no one to talk to. So however we do it, augmented with technology or not, let's remember that there's a lot of people that have no one to talk to at all.
Yeah, really, really kind and important reminder. Thank you, Peggy. And thank you again for sharing your wisdom and your time with us today.
Thank you. Have a great day, Carrie. I'm glad we're on this journey.
I am too. Thank you. And for all of you listening out there, this has been another episode of Audio Life, the podcast where we tell your story in your words. I've been your host today, Carrie Purcell, joined by Peggy O'Flaherty of Vinley. And if you like what you heard, don't forget to rate our show and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another one for you.
If you like what you heard today, consider recording your own Audio Life private podcast or giving one to a loved one for a unique and memorable gift. Today, Audio Life listeners will receive 10% off using discount code GIFT10 and order number Audio Life Podcast. Also, remember to rate our show and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode.